morning, everybody. Welcome to Make Up or Break Up, our favorite show of the week here, all about love. And we are here to talk about finding love, keeping your love. Today, we're not going to talk about leaving your love. I thought we'd keep it on the upbeat. Spring sprung, Lou. So spring.
Yeah.
What's that expression? Spring something eternal.
Hope springs eternal.
Hope springs eternal, right?
Yeah.
And I think springtime is the time when I see an uptick in people wanting to date, and my date coaching goes up, which makes sense.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about love. Look at that. Isn't that cool? It's one of those
oh, it's a tension tension grip or whatever they call it.
Yeah. One of those little de-stressor things. It's hard to do too. I'm really weak on my left hand. I just noticed.
Well, just keep doing it. You'll get stronger. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I didn't know. Is that the point? I always thought this was just for just for
to de-stress, but you get a little, you get a little extra in there.
Get a
little workout. Yeah.
Yeah. Add a can of beans to it, and it gets a little heavier. The beans. So springtime is when people are often thinking about engagements. People are often making their wedding plans. Weddings are often looming in the April, May, June. June used to be the most popular month. Now I think it's September, October.
Yep.
Just like travel always used to be like July and August, and people sort of got smart with that and said, hey, Europe is really crowded in the middle of July.
And really hot.
Really hot.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll go to Europe in September and October. So those are the more popular times. When you got married the first time, what time of the year did you get married?
October. It was October 1st.
Wow. That's so interesting. You were like a trendsetter because
I guess,
because back when you and I first got married, it was still more the June, July was kind of the popular time.
Got married in Hammond Castle. Got married in Castle.
You really did it up, man. That's cool.
Yeah. And we did our own wedding. I used to describe it as our wedding was like a duck. Smooth and calm on the surface, but underneath we were paddling like hell.
Well, that is a great spot. Is that technically Gloucester?
I believe it is. Yeah. I'm not sure, but I believe it is.
So you got to rent it out. They have a small space out back. It's not terribly big.
It was a great site for the wedding and all that. And of course, we had the reception there as well, but it's not great in the fact that it has no liquor license. It doesn't do anything for the wedding except rent you the hall. That's it. You get no help whatsoever.
But, no. Okay. Yeah. No liquor license. So
no liquor license.
So you can't have alcohol there at your party?
Oh no. We had an open bar. We provided all the alcohol ourselves. It was, yeah. I can still remember going up to New Hampshire and loading up a minivan with booze and driving it across the line, hoping we didn't see a state trooper.
Right. Who would say, what the heck is all this for?
Yep. Yep. It was a lot of booze.
That is funny.
Yep.
Well, aside from the fact that I
think it was, and this might come into play today. I think it was, we had a relatively short engagement, not super short. But I remember us talking about it and going, this is going to take as much as our lives as we allow it to take. In other words, if we plan it a year and a half ahead, it's going to take a year and a half of our lives. We can do this in 9 months. I think that was basically it. I think we did because I wonder if I don't remember if I proposed to her on her birthday, which was the end of January, and we just decided we're going to get it done because we didn't want to spend a year and a half, doing the wedding.
I agree. We did the same thing with my first husband, with my son's dad. We were engaged, I think, in May, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we got married in September.
Yep.
First weekend of September, not Labor Day weekend, but the next one. So I guess the second weekend of September. And, I don't want to jinx myself, knock on wood, but every single year that has been a beautiful Saturday for weddings. Isn't that weird?
Sure. Makes sense. Yeah.
Well, what's funny is I chose the date because a woman that I worked for told me that. She said, I don't want to jinx this. I'm like, well, there we go. Now you did. She said, we got married, like whatever it was, September 11th. It is like around, the 10th, right? 10th, 11th.
Yep.
And she said, honestly, I've been married for 18 years and it's been a beautiful weekend here in New England every single year. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do it, but I hope it's not the rainy week, the rainy week that I get.
Yeah, we love September. September's great here in New England. So
right. But what's interesting is it literally has been a beautiful day. If you looked up weather charts or something, history of weather, it's been beautiful every single year, Lou. It's bizarre, but now that being said, everybody's going to plan their weddings for the second weekend in September this year because of me, and
well,
one.
Not that that's good news, because my daughter just changed her. There's going to be separate ceremonies and a party, quote unquote reception. And her reception is September of 22 now.
Oh, so okay.
She changed it to the second weekend in September too, to avoid Labor Day. So
right. Yeah, Labor Day is not good because people like to travel, or they still want to stay at their vacation place, one more weekend. I always get annoyed by people that have their weddings on holidays.
Yeah.
Or although that being said, one of the best weddings we ever went to was a New Year's Eve wedding.
Really?
Yeah. So it was during the day. Oh yeah, they did it up big. So in fact, their wedding was so beautiful that my husband now, he and I decided it was a no-brainer for us. We had already decided it would be in the fall when the weather's nice, because we wanted to go to Italy for our honeymoon, and you don't want to go there in the summer.
Right.
And we also copied their place because we're like, it's just a no-brainer. This place was flawless. It's called Landana, and it's in Burlington, and it's a little bit of a sleeper. It's very upscale. It's part of a Boston restaurant group.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard of Moo.
Oh yeah, of course.
Moo is in that restaurant group.
Yep.
And it's very nice. It's upscale, but the inside of it looks like a Tuscan villa.
Nice.
And it's just really classy, just really nice. So we had ours at the same venue the next year, but that year, so what the best thing is renting it. It's much cheaper than a nighttime wedding, because weekends, of course, you try to rent it on a Saturday night, it's going to be like,
sure,
$20,000 just from the start. But it was a lot, half that price and then some less, to get a really decent package to rent it during the day. So we rented at Landana for it was basically 11 a.m. till 4 in the afternoon, which is perfect.
Yep.
We had a fancy lunch. Lunch was probably served by 1:30, something like that. But we did past cocktails. So we had a cocktail hour from 11 to 12. And again, we copied our friends, because we're like, that's a great idea, because at 11 a.m. you're probably hungry because you're getting ready for a wedding. You're going as a guest. You probably didn't even have breakfast, or you had it at 8 a.m.
Yep.
And now you're going to something that starts at 11. You probably aren't going to actually eat until 1:30.
Well, we had a similar situation, because what we're going to do for the wedding was, there used to be a restaurant in Boston that would have this dessert buffet.
Ooh, nice.
And that's what we wanted to do. And so we were very conscious about making sure on the invitations and stuff, there will be no dinner served. Eat before you come. Basically, we ended up putting some finger foods out with it as well, but it was basically a dessert buffet for it, because there really was no way to do tables and do a dinner at the castle. But it was a little bit unusual. We get a little feedback from it, but hey,
Right. Well, I mean, the thing is, if you're having it at 3 in the afternoon or even 2, they have time to have lunch before they get to your place at 2.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think that's perfectly acceptable. I think people feeling like they have to serve a meal. The point is, I've been to the Hammond Castle when my son was in elementary school. That was kind of a popular field trip.
It's a field trip. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it has that beautiful small backyard, but it's not huge. And you really just want to keep that for walking around.
Yep.
You don't really, there's not a lot of room for many tables at all, you know? But I think,
don't you find with couples that, and I've often said this, and I'm not sure it was true in our case, but it's a strain. One of the biggest strains on a couple early is putting that wedding together.
Right. You're such the perfect wingman, Lou.
Almost like I could do it for a living.
Oh my gosh. Because this is the kind of thing that I'm going to talk about today. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is when I'm working with couples for date coaching, I always emphasize with my clients, once you start dating, and you get to the point of talking about getting married and things like that, you're going to want to do some premarital work with me. And a lot of that comes down to before you get to the wedding day, you want to cover a lot of ground. And you and I talk about this all the time. This is the reason why you should be dating someone for at least a couple of years before you get married.
Right.
Because you want to take your time to let the whole thing somewhat naturally unfold. But you also have to,
well, we've talked about it in the past. Like, you never really know somebody until you're in the foxhole with them.
Right. It's so true.
Planning a wedding is a foxhole. That's one of the biggest foxholes. So you got to know who you're climbing into the foxhole with. Right.
You gotta be prepared. I know for my husband and I, we had our first arguments, really, I'd say, during our honeymoon, primarily because of the scary driving that we were doing with the rental car that we started with in Florence. And, the hardest thing about that, I've mentioned it before, I think, I couldn't really yell at my husband too much because it was my idea. And the last thing I wanted for him to do was to snap and say, fine. And he'd, pull over and give it to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we took our time. We were sort of those oddballs that we dated for 4.5 years.
Yep.
And we did that on purpose. And honestly, I tell people, even if you're 29, don't let that biological clock of, oh my God, I need kids. I want to have kids. I want to have kids. Don't let the biological clock drive your mission to get married.
Yep.
First of all, you're hastening, and you're missing a lot of steps and a lot of quality time by pushing that process. It needs to be somewhat organically evolving, and you also have to allow for time, as you said, to experience some of the difficulties.
Yeah. And
people short circuit that when they get married in 8 months.
Because your first child is a pretty damn big foxhole too. I mean, you got to know who you're taking on as a partner at that point, because things get hard. One of the things with the wedding, one of the biggest stressors for the wedding is a good test for one of the biggest stressors in relationships in general, which is money. How much do we spend on this? If you don't have a feeling on people's tolerance for spending money, you're going to get it really quickly when you start talking about a wedding, and the chances are there's going to be a lot of conflict around that because, trust me, the guy doesn't want to spend a lot of money.
Right. Lou, I couldn't agree more. And I'm telling you, that is one of the major roadblocks with a lot of couples. And it's hard whether you've been dating for 1 year or 4 years, but let's be honest. Time is on your side when you take your time. Ooh, that's a bumper sticker. I just made that up. You can never go wrong by waiting and taking your time. And people tend to feel like, my friends are all getting married.
Right.
I'm getting old. I'm almost 31. I want to have kids. It's like, yeah, you know what? It's going to happen. Believe it or not, people get pregnant when they're in their 40s, never mind like 31 or 32.
Right.
It really can't be a motivator. It's sort of like when people go through divorce, and I know we're not talking about divorce today, but I'm just using it as an analogy. I always tell people, when you're going through a divorce, you need to take the time to try to keep your head, just look down and be looking at like the legal aspects and the new housing and your new life, and just hunkering down basically and getting through that. And you can't, I explain this all the time in the divorce support group. You can't heal until you're out on your own. Mm-hmm. Because when you're still together, you're not really healing because the other person's still around.
And by the way, when you're in the divorce litigation, you're still together. You're still very much part of each other's lives.
Right.
It's almost a day-to-day thing. Mm-hmm. So you can't start to heal fully until you settle the divorce. And that's why, that's why, I mean, we've talked about it in dating too. When you see people who are separated and stuff like, there's a big difference between being separated and being divorced.
Right.
And it's about that mental barrier of quote unquote being on your own.
Right. You're not really on your own until the divorce is over.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, people have to take the time then to get used to being alone and to just be, as we've talked about a lot, just be okay with your singleness.
Right.
But people that come out of a divorce and immediately start dating and immediately get engaged, especially if that maybe they were married in their late 20s and early 30s and they didn't have a kid. Now they're like, oh my gosh, I want to have a kid,
right?
Or 2 or 3. Your motivator is wrong. Your motivator is wrong. The reality is not everybody's meant to have kids. And the reality is, getting pregnant, is such an individual thing that unless you've done it before, you don't know if you're going to be able to get pregnant or not. It may take a month. It may take 12 months. It might never happen. But imagine the couple or the woman in particular, let's be honest, women really sort of fall into this trap. And now it's been a year or a year and a half, and you circumvented the whole dating process because you were motivated by having a kid, because you looked at your biological clock and thought, oh, I can't have a kid at 40, which is wrong. Never mind the whole other topic about adoption and,
right.
So many kids need to be adopted, and, we focus so much on just having our own kids. There's a lot of different ways to create a family. And Lou, I don't know if you've known people, but I've known people, women, who, when that dream starts to fall apart, it greatly impacts this new relationship, which we are going to call the, short-term marriage at this point.
Right.
Because the stress of it, and of course, stress adds to the fact that people aren't relaxed enough to get pregnant. So it's this whole cycle.
Right.
And it gets to a point where you have to wait it out a little bit because you don't really know. Is it biological or am I just stressed out?
Yeah. And here's one of the major reasons why hurrying is a problem, whether it be, especially in the subject today, getting married, is that it, first of all, causes you to drop objections. In other words, you're in a relationship and you have some objections in a relationship and it's not working well on a couple of different levels. But then there's the proposal and then there's the engagement, and that starts a morphine drip and everyone starts focusing on the wedding and you forget about the problems in the relationship. And then after the wedding day, 6 months after the wedding day, you're back in it with this person and you haven't resolved the issues that you had before. It just, the wedding takes over everything at that point. And of course, it's all society is talking about how lovey-dovey you two are and in a relationship, and everyone's supposed to be happy and celebrating. And you are too, even though there are these underlying relationship stressors that just get pushed to the side. Problem is, on the other side of the wedding, you're married to that person.
Right. And the other side of the wedding, when you circumvented the dating process and now you're with someone you've only dated for 8 months or a year, you don't have the strong foundation to go through these difficult times.
Right.
And we're not even talking about other things that happen, Lou. We're not talking about, your sister gets sick, or there's a huge storm and this new house that you guys moved into, or the apartment that you moved into floods. And, on top of that, your main thing was, I have to get married. I'm getting too old and I want to have a kid.
But just from a financial standpoint, you've had separate funds. You're dealing, you have your own sensibilities about money and how you handle it. And you have a little bit of conflict in the wedding because you're spending more than he wants to spend or whatever the issue is. And then on the other side, your money is melded and you're facing these bills from the wedding. And, you're just starting off in a bad position.
Right. Well, and I think sometimes people, they put too much of their savings into their wedding.
Yeah.
Everywhere, everything from like the really expensive dress to the ridiculously overpriced rings, to the very expensive venue. I always tell people, it's kind of like homeschooling, Lou. Homeschooling is great if the mom or dad can stay home and homeschool because the other parent has a decent job and can pay the bills for the family. That's great. But I always tell people homeschooling is a luxury at the end of the day. Not many people, other than Warren Buffett and people, not many people can afford. The majority of Americans, actually, even though we live in a very wealthy area of the nation here in Massachusetts,
right,
in the Boston area, not everybody can really afford to live on just one income.
Oh, it's we're quote unquote wealthy here, I guess, but it's also expensive to live here. There's not a lot of margin for a lot of people. But even beyond the finances, it takes a certain person with a certain personal discipline to be able to do homeschooling effectively.
Right.
It's not for everybody. You can't. It's not easy to pull off, and it requires a devotion and a discipline that frankly, I don't think a lot of people have.
No, I agree. And that's why they have support groups, parents get together and like help each other with that because, as a teacher in a public school system or a private school, you have that support. But when you're homeschooling, you don't. And so usually a group of parents get together and kind of do the curriculum and maybe even some of the teaching together. They kind of share that.
Yeah.
But my point is that is a luxury, and an expensive wedding is a luxury also. And I think people get very, very, I hate to say it, but I think that they get way too materialistic. They think too much about like having that like incredible Cinderella day.
Right.
And the reality is, unless you're an executive on Wall Street, there aren't, or you're like the owner of Brooks Brothers or something. There aren't a lot of people that have that kind of money.
Right.
And so I think starting out with a huge debt or putting that debt on somebody else, AKA your parents, is selfish. And I think it can be a waste of money. It's like if you don't have enough money for a down payment on a small house or condo, but you're going to spend $15,000 on a wedding,
right?
Like this doesn't make sense.
No, and that's before we go on the honeymoon, by the way. But yeah,
that's before the honeymoon, right? But the whole point of this is,
and you kind of understand it to an extent, to a reasonable extent, on a first marriage, young couple, things like that. But spending that kind of money on a second marriage, it just doesn't make any sense.
Right. But even a first marriage, I mean, think about that. That is so much money that people could put toward a down payment, or somebody could go back to school for a master's degree or something like that.
Right.
At the end of the day, people aren't going to remember all the fine details. They're just going to remember that there was a bride in a pretty dress and there was a guy that was probably dressed up, but maybe not. Maybe it's a beach wedding and people are just wearing flip-flops and the bride has on a sundress and everybody else has on nice shorts and a shirt.
Right.
They're going to remember if they were fed or not. They're not necessarily going to remember the quality of the steaks. They're going to remember that there was food, so there was something, right?
Yep.
And they're going to remember the ceremony, hopefully. I mean, that's kind of where they're supposed to be in their thought process, right? It's all, to me, the ceremony is the first thing, and the venue, like you had a great backdrop at the Hampton Castle. But slow and steady wins the race. I'm glad I got that in because that really has become one of my biggest mottos. Slow and steady wins the race. Always. Rushing the process, pushing the process too quickly. That's when people have regrets later.
Yep.
And we don't want people to have regrets when they go into their marriage, whether it's a first one or a second one. Right.
Yeah. And this is where working on yourself comes into play, whether you're young, whether in your second relationship, because if you haven't worked on yourself, you look externally for happiness. And what you think is the big ceremony is going to make you happy. The flashy honeymoon is going to make you happy. But there's going to be a point a couple days after the wedding, a couple days after you get back from the honeymoon, when you're going to realize you put so much into this and it didn't change your life at all. And there was so much more where you could have put that energy and made real differences, in your life and your happiness.
Right. Yep, exactly. So,
and why people who are divorced, for example, and we talk about working on themselves or getting into a second relationship or something, the external happiness they attach to is, if I'm in a relationship, I'll be happy. And that's a very bad attitude to go into a relationship with. Be happy with yourself first, work so you're happy with yourself, so that the relationship is an addition, not a necessity for you to be happy.
Right. Exactly. Right. So one of the things that I do with my date coaching clients, and then often when they're couples, is I help them with a list of questions. And I think it's really important for us to be a little bit more conscientious of the process. So while a lot of this process is organic, you're just going out, you're just enjoying yourself, you're also, let's be honest, Lou, you're evaluating what the other person sees as important in their life, what you can portray is important in your life, and what are the interests that you can share. And so while we like to say it's just fa la 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 la, you just go out once or twice a week and you ride a bike, or you go out to a restaurant, that's well and good, but you really have to be smart. You have to be wise. when people are going through a divorce, we say healing is a choice, and it's important, not just for you personally, but for those that are around you.
Yes.
You can't work well if you're not healed. You can't perform well in a job if you're not healed. You can't be a good parent if you're not healed. You can't be a great son or daughter for your parents, especially if they're getting older. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to be
a great partner for your next relationship. If you're not
right. Exactly. Yep. Thank you, wingman.
Yep.
So one of the important things that I talk to couples about, one of the areas is not just with couples, but with my dating clients, I say, look, at a certain point, you have to talk about your differences, right? I'm just looking at some of my notes here.
Yep.
So the key thing is better to expose your skeletons before you go down the aisle. A lot of people hold secrets, things that they're ashamed of and whatnot, which is why I always tell people, spend time with this person's family and friends, because you'll start to get a feeling. Usually secrets can be alluded to.
Yeah.
You know, people might be saying, oh, like, let's not talk about, you know, that horrible situation that happened 15 years ago. Let's just zip it. But you have to almost be a detective, because you have to make sure that someone isn't withholding. And honestly, I don't know if you've ever done this with someone, but when you get to the point where you're healthy and you're ready for dating, you can actually sort of, you know, as they say, like in, you know, Texas Hold'em games and whatnot, showing your cards, like in a card game.
Yep.
Showing your cards can be really freeing. And holding something as a secret can be devastating, because afterward, what happens is people usually go, oh my God, like something comes up, and now they know that, like, you know, the aunt that's coming is going to start talking to your wife about this terrible thing that went on.
Yeah.
You know, at a certain point, like Aunt Lulu is going to come for a visit, or is going to be at a wedding, and is probably going to be sitting at the table with your wife, Lou, saying, oh, I'm just so glad that he met you. He's been through so many things. And like, say I'm your new wife. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, we hit it off from the beginning, blah, blah, blah. But Aunt Lulu's going to be saying, I know, but like after that fire, I mean, we all know he didn't set the fire, but you know, that was a really hard thing. Like the police were after him. They all thought that he had set the fire to the house, and you're sitting there going, what?
Yeah.
Like, what? If there's an elephant in the room, which is usually something that everybody knows about, so I guess that's not right. If there's a skeleton in your closet, don't wait for Aunt Lulu to come out and say it.
Yep.
Don't avoid Aunt Lulu and that side of the family because you're afraid that they're going to mention this event. Because that happens, Lou. Believe me. I don't know about you, but I've heard of so many stories where that happens.
Oh, sure. But it's not even that dramatic. There are certain things, like I remember before this relationship, I was very conscious about getting stuff out there. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't about specific events or anything. It was about, you know what? Sometimes I get overstimulated and I have to sit by myself for a while. Or I'm not a club type of guy. I don't need to take trips. I am I'm very content. I live at the beach. I love sitting there, and I could sit there and enjoy it. I'm content with what I'm doing right now. Doesn't mean I won't, doesn't mean, but if someone is really, their priority is, oh, we got to go to Spain, we got to go to, you know, South America. It's like, you know, not really my thing. Or sometimes I get moody, or sometimes when work doesn't go right, or I feel stressed out, I can get snappy sometimes. You know, get those things out, because you don't want to become attached to the relationship and then have this thing revealed and it becomes a deal breaker, right? I wanted to get all the problems out of the way so that everybody knew what they were getting into, you know?
Right. So of course, because you're my wingman and you didn't even know that's what my next sentence was. So in my notes, I have here, basically, you're telling your new partner before you get married, before you even probably are even engaged, this is who I am. Here's the good and the bad.
Right.
And that's kind of what you're talking about, is being strong enough to say, hey, you know, I know a lot of people like to go to clubs, and a lot of people like to, you know, go out every weekend, and they like to go to a restaurant, and they really like it if there's a musical band there. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, it's loud because at home we don't have that. And that's like what a lot of people like to do on weekends. But for you, it would be, that's kind of not my style.
Right.
And I just need you to know like who I am. I'm not saying, you know, I'm like Debbie Downer, but this is who I am. And like, it's not that I don't ever want to go out, but that's just not how I like to live my weekend.
And another thing, me, is being where I am in my life and, you know, being the homeowner, it's like, let's go to Davio's. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's half of my propane fill right there. Davio's. That's the terms in which I think of things, you know, which isn't great for a lot of people. But if you understand the way people think and what their process is, everything can work out as long as you understand. It's just if you're sitting there being secret and she wants to go out to Davio's, for example, and go, no, we're not doing that, and you're just being obstructionist, they just think you're just being obstructionist when it's really touching. You know, I always use this phrase, touching your stuff. And the stuff to me is,
there.
Yeah, and touching the stuff for me is, well, Davio's is about half my propane tanks right there. You know. But that's just the way I am. But I also understand when someone reveals that to you, you know that they're aware of that and they don't always succumb to that. And I don't always succumb to that. Sometimes, like, oh, let's go have dinner. It'd be great. But it's part of my thought process. It's part of who I am. Right.
So all right. Well, this is perfect. Thanks, Lou. Okay. So one of the things I talk about with my clients is, so what do you do when you don't like what you hear? What if you don't agree with this guy or this woman's answers? And so I talk to them about discovering the differences. That doesn't necessarily mean throwing the towel in, like on the relationship. A lack of opposing views has never been the secret to a successful marriage or relationship. A disagreement with your partner is an opportunity to hone diversity management skills. And then I write conflict resolution skills, right? I didn't say that. I'm not talking about that.
Nope.
We're discussing differences, and talking about differences doesn't have to be a conflict. It can become frustrating. You might start to feel angry about it. You might be confused about what the other person said, and that's natural. It's important to remember disagreements and not agreeing with everybody's opinion or whatever it is that they're sharing with you. It's natural for two people to have different views on things. And let's be honest, you probably get that way. Like I list out with people, come on, you probably do that yourself. This is what I tell my clients. With friends, your boss, and maybe even your dog. You have a certain way of communicating. You have a certain way of doing things.
Yep.
It, doesn't mean that yours is right or wrong.
Yeah, my dog and I don't agree on everything, but we work it out.
Right. And then I put in here, and these are like from some of the emails that I've written to my clients, unless you're overly aggressive, these diverse points of view are managed without conflict.
Yeah.
And that's important because it shouldn't be conflictual when you're just telling each other, this is who I am, and being honest with, like, which is really what you were saying. And I think that I kind of feel like when I was kind of like listening to you talk about your dating a few years ago, and then when you met your current girlfriend, I remember you were sort of like, yeah, I feel like I can just tell her what I want to tell her, and I tell her that she can say what she wants to say. It doesn't mean that we agree on everything. We don't necessarily. Yeah,
the phrase we use is put it on the table, and I used it with her a lot. I guess you got something, put it on the table, and let's untangle it.
Right.
It's better than dealing with it with secrets and in the shadows and things like that. And it's funny. Last Friday, I think it was last Wednesday, something. I looked at her and I said, "Friday's date night. Let's go out and get something to eat." And it was like that kind of understanding, which I knew is something she'd love. But she comes back immediately and she goes, "You sure you want to spend that money?" I said, "Yeah, let's go have dinner." And that's about having, I had respect for the fact that she would enjoy that. Yep. And she had respect for the fact that there was some money involved, and it was like, and so you just have that respect and you come to the agreement. It doesn't work all the time perfectly, but if you just have respect for the other person's viewpoint, then generally you can work it out. Right. Exactly. And it's not malicious. In other words, she likes to go to dinner. I know she's not maliciously trying to spend my money. And, if I have to go, not this week, I just paid the city, that type of thing. She knows it's not malicious, and once you understand that it's not a malicious thing between the two, you can respect it and work with it. Right. Exactly. Right. So one of the other things that I talk about
with my clients is your past. You know, a lot of people say that they tend to live in the past because most of their life is there. They feel like that's, you know, a big part of who they are.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly legit. You know, like this is what I was writing to a client the other day. I said, look, it's important that you realize where you came from, how it shaped you, and what you want in life. Those are the first steps in preparing for marriage. So this is to one of my dating clients. You need to follow the example of your parents, because your parents often are putting together a path, right, that we need to follow when we're in high school and maybe when we're in college. But after that, you're allowed to deviate off the path, right?
Yep.
So, you know, for example, if you're happy with the path that your parents put you on, that's just how you and your siblings operate, then that's great. Then own it. If there's a different path that you've taken, then share that with your new partner. Share that with the person that you're now. Now, this isn't what you say to like the first 20 dates, right? You know, my theory of having like 20, 25 first dates only, right? With people.
Right.
You don't go this deep with the first date. This is when I'm talking about when you pick someone that's going to be your forever dating partner anyway, and maybe more.
Yep.
You need to explain your past. You don't have to justify it. You don't want to over justify things. I always tell people when you're making a point, especially if it's one that's different, if you're trying to make a point about yourself or how you're feeling about the other person, maybe their activities, like you know, like we always say, don't say you. So instead of saying, you know, you always go out with your friends and you always go drinking beer with your friends and you always go to bars, what I would say is, I just feel a little bit left out sometimes when the bars are a 3 to 4 night activity and I'm only 2 nights. So see, right. I didn't say you. I'm talking about the activity. But when it comes to our past, this is one of the things, and we're going to talk about this now that I'm thinking about it. I think we're going to talk about this for a few weeks, Lou. Dating and premarital, and then vows. We're going to talk about vows in a couple of weeks.
Oh.
That's kind of fun. But don't avoid your past. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've dated people, and in particular, I'm thinking of my second husband. He omitted a lot of his past. And while he would say, I don't have much to do with them, it's not that important for you to meet them. They're not a big part of my life. I sort of keep my distance. The reality is there were reasons why, but he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to go there. And like you said, put it on the table. I should have been more forceful, but I do remember the one time I said, well, you know, at some point, since we are now talking about buying a ring, I would love to go down to the Cape and meet your family. Notice the operative words there, the Cape. They weren't in Michigan. They weren't in Idaho.
Right.
You know, we're talking an hour and a half away. And he flipped out. Actually, he hung up on me, believe it or not. And I was like, wow, that's like the ultimate power and control move. I think I've done it once in my life.
Yeah. And
here we are, like, you know, dating for a year, and this guy pulls the, I'm going to hang up because I don't like you poking the bear.
Yeah.
And, you know, he tried to justify it by saying, I told you, like, I don't really see them that often. You know, I'm not super close to like my brother who lives with my mom, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but, you know, and I had to make that choice right then and there, like whether to poke the bear some more or not. I chose not to. And I live with that regret to this day. That was not smart. That was a big red flag. And,
yeah,
you know, I kind of groveled to get him to call me back. It took 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it took 2 weeks for him to call me back and to get together. And I had to say I was sorry 55 times. Sorry for what? Asking to meet your family. Yeah, it was a really, really sensitive spot. But that tells you this is a person that's not comfortable with their past. They haven't healed from whatever wounds are there. There's a lot of disappointment. Yep.
I want to say that's the distinction that you have to make, because first of all, I wasn't particularly close to my family either. It wasn't adversarial or anything, but I wasn't looking for opportunities to hang out with my family, mostly because I think one of the big parts of working on yourself is not dwelling in the past so much.
Right.
and just being able to let it go. But what you have to take forward with you, you can let go of the past to the extent that you want to, but what you take forward with you are your conditions and personalities that came from that, and you have to deal with that. And, you know, I remember saying, you know, with my current relationship, I remember talking on a couple occasions about things that happened in past relationships that if you like, we'd get into a part of the conversation and I would say outright, you know, I know that's not what you mean, but in the past, this has worked out this way for me. So I'm kind of leery of that. You know what I mean? So you're aware it's a reaction. And this is what you have to understand. Just because someone in your past treated you that way, those same words don't mean the same thing to this person in this time right now. But it's less about bringing your past forward and out as it is understanding how your past affects you today and how you emotionally react to things based on things that have happened to you in the past. That's a lot of the self-work. You know, why do I feel this? You know, why do I not feel worthy enough? Why do I feel persecuted? Why do I feel jealous, or why do I suspect my partner? And it probably has nothing to do with her or him. It has to do with what happened to you in the past.
Right. But the key skill here, Lou, which we're talking about, not to overuse the C word, which is communication. Communication, just to use that word, means nothing, right?
Yep.
To be able to sit with it, like we said earlier, this is who I am. You know, I'm sharing the good and the bad. You have to be able to do that.
Right.
So in this case, my husband should have been mature enough in his 40s, right?
Yep.
To say to me, I'm not comfortable taking you down there because, or I've kind of been avoiding it because, but there was no qualifier. There was no connecting word with an ending to the sentence. It was just no.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not close to them. No. Like,
no, that's not the way to deal with it. And what it means is he's not dealing with the damage from those relationships.
Right. And what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to be with someone who's able to verbalize that, who can just say, hey, you know, actually, he should have been more forthcoming before I got to the point after a year of saying, hey, it's been a year and they only live on the Cape, right? That's a flashing red sign when someone during conversations, I mean, it's not the first date, but it's definitely by the second and third month, you start to have these kinds of conversations like, hey, tell me about your upbringing. Tell me about your youth. You know, did you like to play soccer as a kid? Where did you grow up? All those goofy little things. What were your favorite vacations? That kind of thing.
Sure.
What was your favorite? Who was your favorite teacher and why? You know, what were your favorite subjects? Like, you want to get to know the person. Like, oh, that's so cool. Like, he was like a chemistry geek in high school or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
Or this really fun person was like a rebel in high school. You know, you're like, wow, I wouldn't have pictured that. You want to share those things. Now, an insecure person might avoid telling you that they got into trouble all the time when they were a kid, right?
Yeah.
They need to embrace that and just say, hey, you know, but it was a learning experience, or
right.
Oh, I was thankful that I had a mentor, or I had, you know, my gym teacher saw that I could play some sports and kind of, you know, brought me through with that. Because very often, as we all know, some of the most important people in our lives are grades 1 through 12, AKA our various teachers.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when the home life isn't very good. You know, we're spending 8 hours with these other adults.
Yeah.
So they are mentors. They are role models. And, you know, the better teachers take an interest in the different kids, especially the ones who are struggling, right?
Or again, even more subtle, in school, I wasn't particularly popular. I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't know how to interact socially. And, you know, you start to see how that comes forward today. You know, possibly people have dealt with it, got better at it, but, you know, possibly you say, oh, well, I was wondering about some of your reactions. You're not comfortable at parties, things like that. That makes sense now, you know?
Right. And I think the key thing that we're trying to do here is encourage people to take the positives and create a strong and healthy relationship now. And you can draw on some of the things that didn't go well in your life, but you want to focus on the positives. And you want to be brave enough to talk about both, but you don't want to dwell on the negatives, because the whole point here is we're talking about how to engage in a healthy way and how to create a healthy and positive and supportive, one of my favorite words, relationship. You know, if someone rolls their eyes, like Lou, let's just pretend that like we've been dating for whatever, a year and a half. And you're like, oh, you know, I've really been thinking lately about going back to school and honing in on like boat building carpentry work. And I'd be like, what? Well, yeah. I'd be like, what? But you might say, you know, I'm going to
give up my job at the brokerage firm and go build boats.
Right.
What?
But at the same time, you want to have a healthy relationship that's going to, and of course I'm talking, you know, perfect scenario here. We owe it to our relationship to have somewhat open mind, but the other person also has to be responsible for their actions and their words too. So say you had those feelings, you don't necessarily want to just blurt it out, like you said, and, you know, just tell me about this desire that you have that's like totally new to me. And like you said, like if you're some executive, I might be like, yeah, no, because whatever, right? So those take a lot of different conversations, but you have to create the space in a perfect relationship. Both people can talk about things like that. And change is hard for people, Lou, but if you pick well and you practice it during your dating years with an S on it,
yep,
then it can work.
You got it. There's got to be a safe space. In other words, someone's got to be able to feel like they can talk with you. And, you know, listen, if someone says the guy may be this personality that, this guy may be this personality that I'm going to leave the job at the brokerage firm and go build boats. Mm-hmm. He may be thinking about that a lot. And if what happens is if he puts it forth to his partner and she just goes off the handle and, you know, there's a big fight and things get thrown and, you know, storming out and things like that, that's not a good way to deal with it. If he feels safe enough with her to express that, because chances are he's not thinking of it too seriously. It's just a thought that occurs to him every now and again. Wouldn't it be nice? But, and you can have a discussion. It's like, okay, but how are we going to put the kids through school? And, you know, we've got this house mortgage is pretty big. What are we going to do in the meantime? And what he'll probably say is, I know. It's just a thought I like to roll around in my head every now and again.
Right.
While this conversation was occurring, the big change for me in this last relationship was a lot of times I had the thought is I'm not going around this circuit again, only to lose it or find out there's a problem down the road because I hid something or, you know, it's like, it was funny. It came out. One of the first times we met was in a mall. And I was just joking with her. I said, I haven't been in the mall in like, I can't remember the last time I've been in a mall. And for her, that was like, what are you kidding me? But it's out there. And it's like, it would have been a different deal if we had been 10 months into it. And all of a sudden I say, I'm not going to the mall. I don't like the mall, you know, that type of thing. I don't want to be hiding those facts. And it's like, I was at the point in my life where I don't want to take this long trip down the road just to get it broken up over a stupid thing. And no matter what your age is, you should have that attitude. And plus that's a boundary thing. That's protecting yourself. That's understanding that, listen, if she doesn't like it that I don't go to malls, then we're probably not, if that's a deal breaker for her, it's a deal breaker for the relationship, right? I need to know this. Yeah.
Right. Right. So one of the areas that I actually have in my notes, because I've got a bunch of different areas, is when couples are talking about things that they like to do and what they don't like to do. What we're talking about here is a combination of pleasurable and practical activities. Yeah. And it's important to talk about those things. You know, and like you said, as time progresses, you're going to notice a change in how you travel and how you spend your time. So like you may be different now than you were 20 years ago. Yeah. And it's okay to embrace that. One of the things that I did for one of my clients is because she's like, she always sort of freezes on, I can't keep the conversation going. She has a hard time with like small talk. So I put together a list for her.
Wait a second. She has a hard time with it or she hates it?
Well, she just has a hard time. It's kind of a combination. She has a hard time with small talk. Like, well, what else should I ask him?
Yeah.
So I created a list and, I said, look, you know, even if you said to him, I have this little list, my coach put it together because she thought it would be a good way for us to like have some, you know, conversation starters. So look at different activities and you're going to love this. It's like, you're such a great wingman, Lou. I love it. So the first one is shopping. So it's just hilarious. So here are the details. So like the first activity, I'm like, ask him about shopping. And, you know, there are guys like my husband, depending on what it is, like he could stay in Lowe's for like an hour. I'm like, oh my God, poke my eye out with a fork after like 20 minutes. I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, you know, birds are flying around me. I'm like, you know,
yep.
So here's what you do. I said, you're going to ask questions about different activities. So shopping. So you ask them first, and then theoretically they're going to say, well, what about you? Okay.
Yep.
So, all right. What kind of shopping do you like to do? Where do you like to go shopping? And who do you usually shop with? How often do you do the shopping? And for how long at a time?
Yeah.
So in other words, like if I go to TJ Maxx, sometimes I come out, I've been in there for 2 hours. I know it sounds kooky, but
yep.
I'm looking at the different deals, and, you know, because they have so many different departments, I can get lost there. But this is a great conversation starter, because if you were my date and I said, well, tell me about shopping, like what kind of shopping do you usually do? And where do you go? Well, so like, I don't know, answer the question.
Me?
So, yeah. When it comes to shopping, what kind of shopping do you do and how often?
I do so very little shopping. The most shopping I do is grocery stores.
Okay.
Shopping for groceries. And this is funny because with a lot of women, this would be a problem. It's probably a problem for Janet every now and again. Yeah. I'm not a material based guy, you know?
Right. Okay.
It's like I got 2 or 3 pairs of jeans. I might have 6 pairs of shoes. That's about it. And I just don't have a lot of stuff. I'm not out constantly looking for this type of thing, which is a whole different mentality than normal people. I understand, but there are guys like us who aren't very materialistic based.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All my husbands only had 4 pair of shoes when I met them, and by the end they have like 20.
Yeah, this is the way this is working now too. Yes.
In fact, like I came up with this theory several years ago, which was if you get a pair of shoes and they're super comfortable and they're like super great, go buy another pair, because you're going to be so mad at yourself that you didn't have a second pair 5 years later. So we have backup shoes.
It's so funny.
True story. Yeah.
But then on the other hand, that conversation with me, that's what I would tell Janet. And then Janet,
what do you think? So what would she say? What kind does she like to do, and where does she go, and with whom?
It's not so much that, but like we've been talking. I told you about this 90 Day Fiance show, and we've been watching that for some god awful reason.
I have to look it up.
And you have to. You will love this. But there was this woman, and she had, I guess, I may be saying a Michael Kors purse or something.
Okay.
And she made mention of it, and she's going, "Oh, that's nice," things like that. And somehow we get into the conversation, and it's like that's like a $4,000 purse. I'm going, "What?
Crazy!"
It's like it might have been a different planet, right? And she goes, "Oh yeah, one of those. You would spend $4,000 on a purse? Oh, if I could, sure." And it's like, really? I haven't spent $4,000 on a car. it's like I said, it's same planet but different universes. It's so odd sometimes.
Oh my God, I know, right? It's like right church, wrong pew.
And on this last episode, this woman got her heels caught in an escalator when she was going to meet her Amsterdam boyfriend.
Oh my God, everybody's nightmare come true. I've had that happen on cracks on sidewalks.
Well, yeah, no, and I understand that. I understand that part of it, but that wasn't the part that got the gasp out of it, because I'm going, I'm looking at her and she goes, the gasp, she goes, those shoes are about $2,100. I go, first of all, that there are shoes $2,100. B, that you know this. How do you know this? Because she'll sit there and she'll shop for shoes and she knows what they are. But just that a person would consider paying $2,100 for a pair of high heels, I don't know. Even if I had Bill Gates money, I don't know if I'd do that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We didn't even get onto that topic.
Yeah. It's just funny, but that shows you the different realities, different contexts, different ways we look at things. And it's important to understand this about your partner.
Right. Well, and the other thing is, so the other activities that I have her asking, because she's going on a date this weekend, ask him about details on like, what kind of chores do you like to do? Or what kind of chores do you usually do? Like, because a lot of times they might say, I love mowing the lawn, which is cool. If you just want to know that, like, oh, this is someone that really enjoys doing that. I kind of equate that with somewhat, kind of someone that likes their place to look nice, sort of kind of a form of gardening.
Yep.
What about running errands? and then the next one's gardening.
Yep.
I like wingman to myself on that one. Right, is another one, watching TV.
Yep.
People have very different habits. What TV shows do you like? You know, that's a perfect thing to ask on a first or second date.
Sure.
Like you could talk just about that. And by the time you're done talking about like TV shows and movies, coffee's all gone. Amscray. The first dates are, I mean, for a first date, they're only 30, 45 minutes.
I walked into the kitchen last night and I told her, I goes, I got great news for you. And she goes, what? Because I just added A&E on the Roku. And she goes, why is that great news? He goes, because they've got wrestling biographies on there now. And she's looking at me. She goes, I'm not watching this. I know. It's like, what? And we watch such different stuff, you know, and I'll watch anything Marvel and Marvel guys. And we were just talking about it the other day about movies that we like and don't like. For example, and this is an extreme example, but I've never seen Schindler's List, because if I have 2 hours of my life to sit down and watch something, it's not going to be that. I want some entertainment. I want things to blow up. I want the good guy to win in the end. I want some laughs, that type of thing. That's the type of entertainment I look for. Although I understand that people like the cancer movies and the domestic abuse movies and the horror movies and things like that. It's just not my form of entertainment. You know? And there's nothing wrong with either. Obviously, they put all that stuff out there. So,
yeah, a really good book that I just recommended to somebody today is called The Bookshop. It's really good. It takes place during the Holocaust, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a really good one. And the other one, now it's escaping me again. I looked it up.
See, I'd rather watch a Jack Black movie. Just
just
have a few laughs and loosen up for a couple hours. Yeah.
Yep, I like that School of Rock.
School of Rock, yeah.
I love that movie. You know what? We have to wrap up, though, because I have a 12:30 appointment that I have to get to. But this is really fun. And next week, I'm going to stick to this topic for a few weeks. I'm going to talk about, the not 101 Dalmatians, but like 101 types of questions that you can ask while you're dating.
That's great, yeah.
And we're not shoving this into like 4 months worth of dating. We're talking about over the years. These are the kinds of things that you're going to talk about, and the types of attitude that you should have about talking about things. So if a couple doesn't talk often about life and things and things that are they're concerned with, if they feel like they have a non-communicative partner, what happens over time is it's like it gets worse and worse and worse. And then you just have that relationship, right? The dead relationship.
Yeah.
So start out with the right intentions, with the positive attitude, put your best foot forward and be yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, you need to be comfortable telling people, this is who I am. Now, that doesn't mean if you're rude, you can say, well, that's who I am. I just interrupt people all the time.
No.
Right?
Yep.
Or I yell. That's just who I am. I'm Italian. I yell. It's like, well, so what? I'm Irish and I don't. So cut it out. Some behaviors are not okay, and a lot of behaviors aren't really allowed to be called out as cultural because that's just dumb.
Right.
Like, we all know that, like the Italian hothead, whatever. We all know that they're very verbal, and really my favorite Italian people get excited and, and they use their hands a lot, right? That's okay. And when they're yelling, they're not necessarily, it's just because,
But part of the way, and we'll go on this, but part of the requirement of the that's just the way I am argument is that you're aware of it and you're working on it.
Right.
That's got to be part of the agreement. It's not an excuse. It's not a free pass. It's, I understand I can get this way sometimes. I'm aware of it. I'm working on it. And, hopefully you are. And, so you don't react that way all the time.
Yep. Well, I'm going to leave this with something that we may or may not remember to talk about next week, but something you want to ascertain while you're getting to know someone is like, you need to be a little bit of a detective and find out how do they treat their exes or ex-girlfriends, ex-boyfriends, their ex-wife, their ex-husband. And if everything is like all about how horrible that person was, think twice.
Yeah.
Because it's never 100%. And you will be amazed down the road when you get to know someone's ex, right? At a wedding, at a graduation that you both have to be at, you're going to start putting together the pieces and you're going to see the other side of the story.
Yep.
You want to find out what the other side of the story is, because if someone's telling you that they were the best person in every single relationship, that's not true. Even if it's our reaction to what those terrible things were, right?
That's someone who hasn't come to grips with their part in a relationship, and they won't come to grips with their part in your relationship either.
Right. So that's part of what you're listening for. A person that's not healed, Lou, is going to be someone that says, oh, I love doing the yard work and stuff, but, you know, Bob never let me do that. Bob was always like, you don't do a good enough job, you know, so he always hired people, but I like mowing my own lawn now. And you'd be like, okay, that's legit. But if all my stories are like, oh, yeah, you know, I decorate in all these different colors because Bob always said it had to be white. Like after a while, you're going to be like, you know, was it really always Bob? Like what part are you owning?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so you need to be looking for these flashing yellow signs that often turn into red solid flags. But we'll talk about that later. Next week, we're going to do some more of these questions that we want you to be asking on your dates as you get to know somebody, Mr. or Mrs. Right, as you get to know them over a couple of years, probably before you were even engaged. And we're going to have fun with it. And this will give people conversational pieces for when they're dating. So you're getting some dating tips right here on this show of Makeup or Breakup.
See you next week.
That's right. Be well, be happy, everybody.